did. I watched a few of the
Did you
first
watch
ones.
G2 win?
I did.
Me
I
too. Me
saw
too.
game 7 of G2 and like a
Mhm.
couple before that, and that was a pretty good matchup. Um, it's definitely an interesting Winter Cup with what was it, like 3 reverse sweeps coming out of
Yeah,
group
NRG or not?
stages, and then
Yeah.
Energy getting reverse swept in round 1. But there was definitely some interesting stuff in the quarterfinals. If you want to talk about that, Panda.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so um, I only got to catch the very end of G2 versus Space Station. G G2 versus SSG went all the way to Game 7 overtime, but I did catch the entirety of that Game 7 and the entirety of the overtime. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't catch the whole series. I got going late this morning and just joined part of the way through the series, but that was a pretty close series, especially when you go to Game 7 overtime. I mean, that's the very, very maximum that you can get it to. Luckily, G2 came out with a win there, and I'm glad that they did. Obviously, two extremely high-level teams. Talking about the Rocket League professional scene, I pretty much had G2 pinned there to take a win off of SSG. I just think that they've been playing a little bit more consistently than Space Station has been. Do y'all kind of share that opinion at all?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. One of the biggest teams that I really have noticed that have been underperforming is Version 1. Because there was a lot of stuff that was happening before the season with, like, is Beast Mode going to leave? Is Calm going to leave? Because they had those, like, last-second roster moves, and none of it actually came through. But I feel like that kind of affected them still because they got top 8 at the Fall Major, which is a pretty good result. But now they've gotten 2 finishes in 9th through 12th, and I think they're sitting at, like, 11th place on the North American Winter Rankings. Yeah, they're sitting at 12th. So they basically they have to win the next tournament, I think, to qualify for the winter major. So they're definitely not looking good, and they should have been looking good. But other than that, M80 is probably the biggest surprise, and also Dignitas, who are performing really well above what anybody thought they would.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Kind of moving into our next topic, in that of M80, I think kind of surprised quite a bit of people. Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't really been giving them much credit just because I feel like, M80 is consistent of Percy, Kinsey, and Lion Blaze. And I feel like Lion Blaze has been around.
He's had a lot of controversy, especially with his last team. I think it was Luminosity or Ghost. One of the teams, he just wasn't showing up to practice. When he did, he was super late, and he was super negative around the team. So he definitely has had a troubled past, and to see him come back with a team made up of Percy and Kinsey was kind of set aside on a couple teams. He was with him in Luminosity, and then Percy also with him, or was in Exed. And so it's definitely like a couple outsiders that kind of just got left over from the roster, and they're coming in here and making really big strides in the North American scene, which is at this point the probably the most diverse and well-rounded region we have, besides Genji winning every tournament. But there's so many contenders for top fours that it's kind of crazy to see them contend for a top 4, especially with Dignitas there as well.
No, I agree. That's kind of what I was getting at with M80. Like, I didn't really give them much credit just based on who their roster was. Like, Lion Blaze, I feel like, has been on the outskirts of the pro scene for so long, and he kind of feels like that guy who would never really break into, a top 8 or a top 4 team. So to see them start actually doing so well, or Lion Blaze more specifically, obviously, Kinsey and Percy are their own person, but I kind of look at Lion Blaze kind of as like the focal point, and I think that kind of shows in their play as well. I think Lion Blaze kind of, brings that team together. I don't think that Percy or Kinsey necessarily on their own carry too much weight for that team. I think it's mostly Lion Blaze. So to see them actually start doing really well, I think is a really good thing, and really good for people that kind of get stuck in this like outskirts of the pro Rocket League scene for an extended period of time. Shows that he can still play at an extremely competitive level. So yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess some other mainstays. I feel like G2 is still performing really well with their roster. FaZe Clan performing pretty well. I didn't think they did too well in the first tournament, but still have a good chance of qualifying. Space Station are kind of just a team that floats around. Sometimes they do really good. They're kind of like a on the day team, so they have the chance to win a tournament, but also they can just bomb out. And then the two South American move alongs, Furia and Complexity, kind of underperforming in my mind, especially Furia, who played super well at the World Championship, top 4 beating Moist in that series, which was incredible. So seeing them still kind of not find their footing in the winter split is a little bit rough, but I think they still can rebound. But definitely some a lot of potential here. But Genji's still definitely the clear favorite, as they're going to try and win their like 3rd tournament in a row or something. So pretty good for them.
Yeah. That was a big thing. You were talking about the South American teams. That was a big thing that surprised me was M80 sweeping Furia 3-0 in the first round of the playoffs. I guess I give Furia too much credit just because of what I know that their potential is, and then I wasn't really suspecting M80 to do so great. But M80 making a really good run against Furia, and then earlier today when they played Gen G, the first 3 games really didn't go M80's way, but they were all 1-goal games. I think game 1 was a 2-1 overtime that Gen G took, and then games 2 and 3 were 1-0 for Gen G. And all those, that's 3 losses in a row. I mean, that's still all they're all 1-goal games. I mean, those aren't blowouts by any means. That's just a 1-goal difference from win or loss. So
yeah, it's I think M80, especially the last tournament, beating FaZe Clan in 4 games in a best of 5. Really, really good results from them. Dignitas, as I said before, but Complexity, I'd say they're the best South American team right now. I wouldn't consider them South American anymore with CRR especially, but South American base team, and I think they have a good chance. I think they're probably going to make it to the LAN, but the Winter Major, it's in San Diego, right? I think it's... Yeah.
San Diego DreamHack as well, so
okay.
There'll be other tournaments going on as well.
Yeah, it's definitely... I think the biggest storyline is if Gen G can continue their really, really good form for the past 4 months or so.
Exactly. And do you think... Got like a couple questions brewing here. So I find it funny that M80, their logo is kind of like referencing like Dynamite. And I saw on Twitter today, they averaged like 5 demos a game against Gen G. So do you think that maybe they're kind of playing like that purposely, or they just kind of do it for fun to kind of play off of their M80 logo?
I don't know. I mean, like, you know what an M80 is, right? Like,
you think they're doing it because their logo is Dynamite?
Exactly.
Well, wait, have either of you actually used M80s, like the fireworks?
Oh, I
like,
thought it was...
it's an actual like thing. It's like this big around and like this tall, and little red tubes, and they're called M80s. They're like probably like the most scary like firework that you like throw from your hand. Because you remember like the tiny little firecrackers.
Is it the ones that
like,
pop up?
Those
are the ones I know. The ones you throw and they go.
No,
Poop.
not the ones that you throw on the ground. No, those little like snap, crackle, pop things.
Oh, Black Cat firecrackers or whatever.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
But it's an M80 is like quite a large one that, like, I mean, if you were to hold it in your hand and line it off, then it would probably blow all your fingers off. I mean, they're pretty scary, powerful for their size. But yeah, no, that's what an M80 is. So I think obviously the organization itself, shaped their logo into that on purpose because of what an M80 is. Now, I don't know about their play style though, if that maybe could be, but I also think it kind of ties into kind of where like the 1v1 meta has gone like in recent times. I think there's been a lot more physicality in ones, and you have 2 like long time like ones players in like Kinze and Lion Blaze that are part of that team, and I think maybe they just bring that naturally to the play style, but I don't know that it's like an on purpose.
I mean,
or
you got Abjack on Gen G, and I think Chronic was a ones player that are really, really high level ones players, so it really wouldn't affect them because same meta. So, exactly. But I feel like we're shifting more towards players that can play ones at least consistently, like Optic with AJ, Finn with First Killer. You have a base that can play ones really well. I think Beast Mode's high level ones player on version 1. G2 has Atomic, who high level ones player. Chicago is up there, I think. So ones is kind of, if you can transition your ones plays into 3v3, it's really, really good for high level gameplay.
I agree 100%. And then you were talking about on version 1, who did you just say? Did
Beast
once?
mode. Beast mode.
Beast mode, but also Calm as well. I mean, Calm historically for years has been at the top of the one scene as well. You're seeing that a lot more nowadays, as you have these 1v1 prodigies that like start out their career being really good at ones and then start transitioning over to threes. I think that's kind of more the more typical route nowadays, instead of you climbing your way through the Rocket League 6-man ladder and getting discovered that way. I think a lot of people have been grinding out ones and landing their way on the teams that way.